Peace and blessings, family. Welcome to this special edition as we look at Juneteenth. I'm coming live to you from Lake Charles, Louisiana, with a special guest, Brother Jamil Muhammad. And before we get into this conversation on Juneteenth, I want y'all to know where I am every year. This is the second year. They do a Juneteenth Freedom Festival. And they do everything from looking at providing, this year they did testing at different churches for the COVID-19, everything around health related. They did a community day where they basically looked at planting plants and drive-through where you could basically learn about agriculture and feeding yourself. They do a men's health day. They do a women's health day. And then tonight they are doing fireworks, and this is their calendar of events down here in Lake Charles. And now I am joined. And then yesterday they did a telehall conference, and that was telehall meeting. Sorry, and that was awesome at their local Black radio station, which is incredible. And now I'm joined by Brother Jamil Muhammad. And how you doing, Brother Jamil?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Glad to be on your program this afternoon and really excited to be a part of these great series of events here in Lake Charles, Louisiana.
So, what is your thoughts about all of these awesome events?
Whoa. There's too many thoughts to put down. I guess we'd have to have volumes of the program because there's a lot of thought. The first thing I'm thinking about is how grateful I am to the creator for the wonderful energy and the visionary leadership of the CEO of SWLA, our sister Javon Muhammad, who has created and has energized a community with this Juneteenth observation. And we'll get into Juneteenth a little bit later in the broadcast, I'm sure. The history of Juneteenth, what it means, where it comes from, why it's called Juneteenth, what happened, etc. But on this particular occasion, this year specifically, in the midst of a pandemic, a global pandemic, a pandemic of disease and death, a pandemic of the coronavirus and COVID-19 and quarantining and sheltering in place and social distancing, a pandemic of racism and the explosion of virulent violence against our people all over this country, it becomes very important this year, Rolanda, for there to be a Juneteenth observation that makes sense, a Juneteenth observation that is relevant. And so to address the glaring disparities in healthcare and wellness between white America and Black America, to address the glaring disparities between these two communities when it comes to access to programs, materials, information, and even life-saving treatment. This is a wonderful time to be in Lake Charles, which for this week every year becomes the programmatic and outreach center of Black America, particularly when it comes to health, when it comes to wellness, when it comes to a coordinated, synergistic lifestyle that leads to life and not death. And so while the fight is nowhere near over, and while the journey continues to be long in front of us, we still are happy and invigorated, grateful to be on the path. Yes, ma'am.
Right on. So, Jamil, give us some of the history of Juneteenth. Where does Juneteenth come from?
Well, as you can see from the great graphic, I want to thank your tech staff for the great graphic that I see on the background of the screen. But Juneteenth refers to the date of June 19th, 1865, when some 2.5 years after Abraham Lincoln had signed the proclamation, the Emancipation Proclamation, and therefore, ostensibly he freed the slaves in the South, but he had no authority to do that on January the 1st, 1863, because the South had seceded into the Confederate States of America, and he was making a proclamation about what at that point was a separate nation. The only two states in the Union that had slaves at that time, legally instituted as a system, were Delaware and Maryland. And explicitly in the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln declared Delaware and Maryland exempt from it. Therefore, we didn't have any kind of a notification about this about this proclamation. So interestingly enough, slaves didn't hear about it. There were about 700,000 slaves in Texas, almost 1 million of our people in Texas who, far away from Washington and the East Coast and New York City and the media powers of the day, they hadn't heard about any emancipation at all. They had not even heard that the Civil War and the fighting had been over for 2 months. So when General Garrison pulled into the port of Galveston, he was announcing not necessarily the freedom of the slaves for the benefit of the slaves, those who have been captured and made the slaves, because we're not slaves, we were enslaved people, we're not slaves. Right. But he went there, and for the benefit of that time frame, he was speaking to flex. You understand? He was flexing on the former Confederates and saying, hey, I come from under the umbrella of Washington, D.C. I'm telling you, you all are free. So the black people who had gathered in the square, in the plaza, there at Galveston, Texas, upon hearing this, erupted, according to reports, in a spontaneous outpouring of joy and happiness and celebration. And they determined that they would do so every year to commemorate that spirit of joy, that spirit of hope. Because remember, these brothers and sisters who were enslaved were not just sitting around waiting for someone to free them. They had already begun to free themselves by escape, by insurrection, by uprising. They had already begun to free themselves by buying themselves out of slavery and creating new communities where they would begin to generate the prosperity to buy their other brothers and sisters out of slavery. So there was activity already having been motivated and taking place already. But on Juneteenth, we saw this great outpouring of joy. And so the brothers and sisters determined to do it every year. Until recently, Juneteenth has not been known outside of Texas. But now with the climate being what it is, because the only pandemic in America is not COVID-19. There's a real virus called wicked white supremacy, and it's affecting this whole country. And its outbreak currently is particularly virulent and violent. When you think that racism went somewhere and buried its head, no, indeed. Racism is as alive today as it ever was in America. And for us to come together and recognize that we are making a difference is the key thing,
Right on. So tell us tonight about this firework display that's going to be happening in Lake Charles.
Well, fireworks are always an important display. And, you know, it's interesting that Juneteenth, we would have fireworks here in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Lake Charles, which is about halfway between New Orleans and Houston on the Gulf Coast, right? Lake Charles, not too far from the Galveston, where this Juneteenth was declared in the first place. Lake Charles, a key area in the history of our people. But fireworks are often a display put on by nations and organizations and political subdivisions to demonstrate the glory, the beauty, the excitement of being a part of something bigger than oneself. A couple of weeks from now in Washington, they'll have fireworks for their Independence Day, which they celebrate on the 4th of July. We're not going to get into this discussion here today, but I will say the 4th of July will be special this year. We'll get a chance to hear from Minister Farrakhan. We're not even going to talk about that. But I tell you, and that's a great bit of news that you'll see all throughout the social media community. But every year on the 4th of July, the United States recognizes their sovereignty, their national spirit, their patriotism, and they set off fireworks on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. At large occasions, they set off fireworks in the New York Harbor behind the backdrop of Lady Liberty, the Statue of Liberty. Every year, they set off fireworks in Los Angeles Harbor. They set off fireworks in Seattle and Puget Sound. because they're showing the greatness of their idea of what their nation is. We must begin to understand that we are a people who have been blessed and highly favored. Pardon me for clearing my throat. Blessed and highly favored in this life and in this time. There was a beautiful sister of ours, Sister Nakia Hayes. She may be on this teleconference today, but today she made note that she was wearing at her office back in Maryland, she's wearing a t-shirt that says Juneteenth, and then underneath it says free-ish, free-ish, not quite free, free-ish. We show the signs of freedom. There's tendencies of freedom. We're moving the direction of freedom, but the direction of freedom that we've been pursuing thus far has not netted us real freedom. So we're not free yet. We're just free-ish. And that was a wonderful messaging that I saw there, and I wanted to share that with you today, Rolanda, for the program. You're still muted. You're still muted.
Sorry, thank you, because there were people walking it out. So for this fireworks, why should people come out and join us at these fireworks? So I think sometimes people don't understand the importance of the fireworks on Juneteenth for our community, for our ancestors, what have happened. Why should we be celebrating Juneteenth? You know, in our communities across the country, people are celebrating, but here in Lake Charles, there will be fireworks, and that is incredible.
Yeah, it definitely is. This is the largest fireworks show in this region of the country. Hey, Sister Toy, but this is the largest fireworks display in this region of the country. It's also a time when you can see responsible gatherings in the era rather of COVID-19. I talked earlier about the visionary leadership of Sister Javon Muhammad, and I really want to salute her again. This will not be a gathering of people bunched up on the riverfront here in Lake Charles, bunched up, irresponsibly gathering with one another and possibly spreading the virus. No, there'll be social distancing in place. There'll be careful remembrance to cover faces, right? There'll be careful remembrance that if you're sick or feeling in any way out of sorts, you're not to come into this setting. So that this is a responsible gathering of people with a serious and focused mind to be free and to celebrate the fact that we have been brought thus far by faith. We've been brought thus far by faith. And that faith has brought us this far along the struggle, but the struggle is not over. We even have the internal struggle to determine whether our ultimate goal is inclusion at the table with our former slave masters and their children, or is our ultimate goal freedom, justice, and equality in a land of our own and a nation of our own? I read a wonderful quote this morning from Dr. Bernice King, the daughter of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Mrs. Coretta Scott King. And what Dr. Bernice King said was very interesting. She said the dialogue and the language that says we need to invite more blacks to the table in America indicates that it's your table to invite somebody to. And she said that racism is about power, and that is a subtle indication of power, that you determine who is at which table and where they're seated. Somebody said that, Michelle Obama said that if you have a seat at the table and you're not going to use it, then push away from the table. That may be the case, but I venture a third stream of thinking. From the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, why not build your own table? Why not build your own table with your own people who want to be free in a nation of our own, settled on land, some of this earth that we can call our own? I heard a young woman tell me the other day, Rolanda, she said, that sounds great, but they'll never let us do that. Let me give you all a news flash this afternoon on the Earth Mama Network. They have no power to stop you from anything. There is no one who can stop you from doing anything that God has determined that you will do. But if you believe that they have power, in that instant, they do. Let me say it to you again. There is no one who has power to stop you from doing anything. And that is the energy, the boldness of Charles this weekend. All right, now I may have lost my video. Can you still hear me though?
I can still hear you, Jamil. I just can't see your video. I don't know what happened, but your
Well,
video
no,
went away.
well, you can see from the screen, I got a really good tan. You see how good you see how good I
Jamil, you so funny. Let
look?
me just say this. If you're just joining the Earth Mama Network, we are talking with Brother Jamil Muhammad. We are both down here in Lake Charles, Louisiana, to celebrate Juneteenth. And I'm from California, that's where I live. But here down in Lake Charles, he's going to bring us up back in. We have Sister Javon Muhammad, who runs the SWLA Health Center. Which is really an awesome place to be. And basically, they have 7 days leading up to Juneteenth where they look at the health and wellness of Black people. Everything from a men's health day to a women's health day to looking at farming, agricultural, health justice, food justice and safety, community conversations with people who work inside the health department and all of those great things. So this is what we have. Going on. And so, Brother Jamil, for some people who just joined on, if you could again give us a little bit of the brief history of Juneteenth.
Yes, and thank you again. I don't know if we were able to be heard before, but Juneteenth and the history of Juneteenth, in a nutshell, Juneteenth is the date around which we observe the last notification from the American government to those enslaved Africans who have been held as kidnapped victims in Galveston, Texas, that there had been a declaration by the government that we were free from the institution of slavery. This met with our own aspirations and what we had been acting toward already. As we said earlier, I didn't want anybody to think that Blacks had been sitting around waiting for somebody to wave a magic wand and make us free. We have been agitating and we have been motivating and militating and organizing to be free. And as we organize to be free, dear caller and questioner, as we organize to be free, this Juneteenth came as a confirmation. And so Black people in Texas agreed that every year on the 19th of June, observing the anniversary of that which took place on that date in 1865, we would celebrate, we would recalibrate, we would again assemble to assume what we could do to move our cause further in the coming year than we had in the past year. That's why I'm glad to be with you all here in Lake Charles, Louisiana, because this is a responsible observation. And I can't stress that enough. We're not just running around here traveling and acting a fool for nothing. It is truly a pandemic. This is not the hour to be traveling irresponsibly. This is not the hour to be gathering frivolously. This is not the hour to be carelessly frittering away the instructions that come from on high to stay in the chambers of your own development. When you come out here for this is a necessary observation, and we'll return to our private individual chambers to continue the work of self-improvement, which when this is over will be the basis for community development. And we'll see community development like we've never seen before. That's why we're glad to be here in Lake Charles with SWLA and under the leadership of Javon Muhammad. It's a very, very, very good time to be here. Yes, ma'am. You're still muted.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm in a hotel lobby, so we're trying to give ourselves some distances. So tonight the firework display. I guess they're going to be showing a movie. I'm not exactly sure what the movies they're going to be showing, and then they'll be having a gang of fireworks lighting up the sky.
Yeah,
When fireworks are lit and lighting up the sky, brother Jamil, what is that is symbolic of lighting up the sky with fireworks?
it's symbolic of illuminating the darkness of human thought with the bright light that will cause us to have a path of vision out of slavery, even in the dark. Our fireworks are not quite like the fireworks of other folks. Their fireworks, and we have some things in common, of course. The fireworks that you'll see in DC on the 4th of July, those are the fireworks that indicate American patriotism, that indicate American power, indicate American wealth, and the freedom of American citizens to reflect on what they have access to in their country for their benefit. And I'm using the right pronouns. I'm not talking about us and we and our. I'm saying them and they and theirs. And the reason for that is that you and I, as Frederick Douglass so eloquently pointed out to us on the 4th of July, 1852 in Rochester, New York, the 4th of July celebration that they engage in is for you and me a hollow sham. It is a mockery. It takes into account nothing of our suffering and misery and views us almost as chattel who are to build this country for the glorious benefit and joy and pleasure of white people. And that is not the case. So on June the 19th, Juneteenth, if you will, we come together. We come together to reflect on our national ideal and our national ordeal and how we're moving forward to our national goals. Our national goals, as I said just a moment ago, we have to determine, and it's still being figured out, whether we're going to strive for integration or strive for independence and separation into a nation of our own. But either way, as we move forward, we have to move in the path of dignity. We have to move in the path of respect. We have to move in the path of self-respect and dignity and honor for our children to have something to look at. But gone are the days when we will be sitting outside of the rich man's house begging for a crumb off his table. Gone are the days when we will sit around and waiting for somebody to legislate or declare an executive order or make a judicial decision about our future in the God-given universal rights that we have for our people. We have a right granted to us by God. And so I believe it is a mistake for us to continue to put our hat in our hand and cringingly bow down and go down to the courthouse and ask for justice and go down to the White House and ask for justice and go over to the Capitol and ask for justice when it has been clearly demonstrated to us that there is no justice in them to give to us. So now, while we struggle, let us struggle to be together, one with another. And if we have real allies, let them be allies who help us to establish for ourselves what they so clearly have for themselves. And if they won't help us establish what it is that we need to be a free, proud, independent, and productive people, can we really call them allies? I don't know. You're still muted.
Thank you, Jamil. So if you're just joining us again, we're coming live from Lake Charles, Louisiana. We are down here at SWLA Health Services, uh, and they're doing the 7 days to Juneteenth. And basically, because I think this is a great concept, and I think wherever you are in the world, if you're running a health department, if you're running a small clinic, hell, if you're just very involved in your community, we should all be having celebrations leading up to that Juneteenth. So the first thing they did on June 13th, they did a community gardening day, which was
Beautiful.
incredible. Then they also did a virtual church sermon on COVID-19 and testing on June 14th. Then on June 15th, they did launched a Healthy North Lake Charles campaign there. Then on June 16th, they did a Black Men's Health Day. And then on June 17th, they did a Black Women's Health Day. And then yesterday, they did a community panel discussion looking at health and impact in the Black community. And today, they will have a drive-in movie and fireworks to culminate June 19th. Now, that is incredible. That's called work, family. So
Yeah,
the best way you can honor your ancestors and June 19th is to be productive, take care of community, empower yourself, take a hold of your health. And basically, that's why we're down here. And I just feel honored to be a part of the continuum of freedom for us here in America.
yes,
And
ma'am.
so having those fireworks is just incredible. Yes, Brother Jamil.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. He's so enthusiastic. You just brought up something that I wanted to remind our listeners of. On the 14th, last Sunday, there was actually a virtual sermon, a church service, and then what you mentioned, and I don't want anybody around the country to miss out on why Lake Charles is so important at this point. There was actual COVID-19 coronavirus testing in the community. Nobody was being billed. Nobody was being charged. We went to our community to test our people for this plague and went out to make sure that we took care of our communities. That's what SWLA is about. When you look at how this took place, you're looking at something else I heard Sister Javon say last night in a great conversation with Sister Deborah Fair from Detroit, Michigan, who is the Director of Public Health in the city of Detroit. And she said that whatever Detroit is doing in healthcare for the population, that other cities should begin to mirror, and should begin to emulate, and should begin to put in practice in their cities, and that Lake Charles is becoming a leader. Listen to this now. Lake Charles is becoming a leader in public health policy and administration for the community at the grassroots level. That's something that's very powerful as a witness of the good work that's going on here. And I actually heard her say on the air on KZWA last night, she said, Javon said, hey, look out, Detroit. Lake Charles is coming for you. That's the kind of spirit. So if we have officials around the country who are providing health care, preventive health care, wellness education, community gardening, canning, food storage, all of the various different skills that we'll need to survive not only a pandemic, but also a famine. As the dollar falls and the country is politically unstable and people feel free to take the lives of our young men and string them over trees and then write a quick medical report that says, sorry, it was suicide. You can tell the times are changing and you and I must be ready for it. Is there anybody who will address the mental health ramifications and consequences of Black people having to live in a society where every day they're seeing the murder of someone on television, not a movie, not a dramatic act, but a real live murder on camera? Eric Garner killed on camera. Alton Sterling killed on camera. Our brother Philando Castile killed on camera in front of his wife and children. Here in the last month, George Floyd killed on camera. Rayshard Brooks killed on camera. What is the psychological effect on a community to see its young killed daily on camera and people escape any consequence for it? We have something to do, and that something will not wait. It will not wait. We must get up. We must go to work. We must organize. We must put things together. So I'm very grateful for Sister Javon and her work. And in fact, and I hope I'm not making a breach of any kind of secrecy, but I have to tell you that she has been working hard to find ways that faith-based communities can actually aid in COVID-19 testing in cities across the country. So you definitely want to get in touch with Southwest Louisiana Center for Health, that's SWLA, right here in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and talk to the CEO, Ms. Javon Muhammad. There'll be ideas about how you can save lives in your community. I want to switch gears, Sister Rolanda, to make it a little bit lighter, but I got to tell you, the movie tonight is The Princess and the Frog.
Okay, I didn't know what it was.
Okay, it's The Princess and the Frog. Now, this is notable not only for the wonderful work of Anika Noni Rose, who stars as the princess, but you know who's in this as the villain?
No, I don't.
You wouldn't believe it. Who later became known as Bishop Jacob Greenleaf from the Greenleaf program. This is actor Keith David, who plays the villain, the heavy, in the movie tonight. So bring the family. It's a G-rated film. You can watch it. You know, some people wanted to have the Juneteenth festival be blaxploitation, but we couldn't have all Fred Williamson movies and Juneteenth. So tonight, Princess and the Frog. And we're going to gather there socially distant. And the beautiful thing about it,
Drive-in.
It's a drive-in. So
Yeah.
your family can come drive into the movie theater enjoy the feature along with all the other cars, but our community will be back in contact with one another after this indignation has passed. Go get your book of Isaiah, go get chapter 26, go get verses 20 and 21, and learn that it is time now for you to come in. It is not time to be out in the street. And you know, Brother Emmanuel Selassie says that church is a problem in our community. And church is just a social club. And you might be right in some instances, dear brother, but the church is an institution that we have some degree of control over. And the church is an institution that we can begin to use for the benefit of our people. The church is an institution which has been strong, stronger in some cases than others, stronger in some places than others. But I would not condemn the entire Black church nationwide as a social club. I certainly would not condemn the entire Muslim community nationwide as a social club. I would not do that. I would actually say that there is much work to be done and that there is room for improvement in every institution that serves Black America or purports to serve Black America. But since there is room for improvement, we should all get busy and improve the room in the house where we serve. I can't reach across and tell you what's wrong with your organization, and my organization is performing at less than optimal levels. I need to become organized with what I'm doing and improve the output based on the stated goals of my own organization. So I appreciate it,
Oh,
but I would
Jamil
not.
has frozen, family. So you're
I
back
froze.
in. Yep, you're back. Okay, go ahead.
I'm back.
You
Yeah,
froze
that's
for a hot second. It's
right.
okay.
I'm
Go ahead.
not to freeze at all. I want to make sure we continue to work this thing out.
No, we
No,
good. It's great
everybody in
information.
Black America, do what you do. Don't worry about what the next man is doing, what the next woman is doing, and condemning somebody else and pointing a finger. I watched here in Lake Charles as I've seen the machinations of government and the system's role, and that there are people who stay in power, who continue to rule based
Hmm.
on their accurate prediction, at least thus far, their accurate prediction that Negroes would argue with one another,
Yep.
that we would dispute with one another,
You better say it.
that we would then turn on each other and begin backbiting one another while we backbite each other and eschew unity. Without unity, some people
Go
talk.
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. While we do turn our backs on unity, they continue to keep us under the whip. They continue to keep us confused. They continue to keep us disenfranchised. They continue to keep us without power. But unity requires mutual respect. It requires that I respect you and you respect me, and we look forward for a future for our children. I don't know how much future we have here in America. I don't know what we expected to do in this era of COVID-19. But I do know, and I want to make sure that everyone hears me say this, I want to say it clear. On the 4th of July this year, it won't be like the other Independence Days in America. The 4th of July this year at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, go to noi.org/the criterion and hear the voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It is he who taught me the spirit of love and respect for all of our people. It is he who taught me to call all of us to a responsibility and then be responsible ourselves. It is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan who will give direction to us in a time of trouble. So all of you who've been asking, hey, where's Minister Farrakhan? Where's the Muslims? Where y'all at? Here on the 4th of July. And so leading up to that date is a great, great time for us now. A great, great time for us to hear this observance on Juneteenth. These fireworks where we light up the sky. These fireworks where we actually begin to light up the dark of thought with the illuminating idea of benefit, progress, and success. This day and hour and time in which we can unite, this is the key. This is the hour. This is the day. Juneteenth, Lake Charles is the center of the Black world every year for Juneteenth week. And we're grateful to be here in Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Well, another thing I wanted to highlight, Jamil, as we focus on Juneteenth and freedom, and I feel like it's just important to help each individual, no matter where you are, no matter if you are a religious person or not, to have the tools that you need to be okay and to be free.
That's
And what
right.
I love about Javon, this is one of the things I really love about her. No
Mhm,
matter what her origins is,
mhm.
Javon makes sure she can reach people whether they believe in that doctrine or not.
That's right.
And so for me, looking at someone doing a community gardening day was about home gardening. It wasn't like necessarily you're going to someone else's garden, but it's like, how can you garden in your own backyard? I
Mhm,
don't know about you, Jamil, but when I was coming up, I had a grandmother, a great grandmother as well, who always grew something in our yard. We didn't have much of a yard,
mhm,
but they grew them in little pots because they had came from the deep South, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia,
mhm.
and they said it was just not natural for you not to be growing your own food. And
Right.
I feel like that is a part of freedom. So as we look at Juneteenth, one of the ways you can learn to be free now in this space is to grow your own food, whether it's just a tomato. Thinking of a great Queen Mother, Elder Warrior, Ancestor Fannie Lou Hamer talked about that. You should grow something in your own backyard,
No
just
doubt
a
about
little bit of something. And so having food justice and being able to grow your own community garden is, to me, that's all a part of freedom that you can do. You can plant something. You can get dirt and seed. You can get seed at any. You can get seed packets at Walmart. You can
it.
get seed packets anywhere.
Mhm,
And you can plant a tomato. You can plant some peppers. You can plant some cabbages. You can plant, okra. You could do all of that. But we have to get back to that. It's interesting that on Juneteenth, and we know what slavery was really all about for our ancestors, but something shifted in us where some of us, stopped touching the earth, stop growing our own food, and that is something that enslaves us now that we do not know how to do the things that we were brought here to do to build wealth for another people. But there was something skill sets that we had that had everything to do with life.
mhm.
And so here we
You're
are back at Juneteenth with that. Yes, sir.
you're so right. I think as you accurately point out the leadership, and I think I said this at the top of the program, the leadership of Sister Javon Muhammad as the CEO of SWLA is that she touches on this broad-based, mutually and universally respectful platform of building, building, building. And so as we move forward, none of what this message is about is any kind of nonsense. What this message is about is people getting together to work together. Are we in a position where we can afford the luxury of disunity? I love what you said, Ro. You said even if people don't hold one belief or a particular another particular belief, can they get together and do the things in unity that will make us successful as a people? As the slides move on the screen in front of you, and you see the tele-town hall meeting and the Juneteenth Freedom, the Community Garden Day, the virtual church sermon, and COVID-19 testing, as you see Men's Health Day and Women's Health Day. This is a comprehensive example of what can be done. This is symbolic in one week, but it's also substantive in one week, in that it allows there to be a major impact had against disease and sickness and illness creeping into our community. And you will know what one of the great diseases that I love, what SWLA works against, and it is the disease of disunity. It is the disease of disrespect. It is the disease of us confusing the atmosphere with argument in an hour which calls for compliment. Complement with an E, not compliment. Oh, you have on a nice shirt today. No, complement, that we work together, that we build together, that we strengthen together our communities, and that those of us who are in positions to be able to affect the level of and quality of service that reaches our people at the grassroots level, for them to be able to do that and to be willing to do it is exciting.
Right on.
Exciting.
Yeah. I think another beautiful thing, I know that people talked about the church, and I'm not a religious person, but I know that all of us need to figure out how to work with each other. It doesn't mean you're going to go and hang in a house and all that. But there's some, that's what I love about Jamon and her work with her clinic, SWLA, is that they have figured out we have to go to where the people are. How do we pull us together enough? Because I've been a part of some conversations here where we may come from different backgrounds, but the goal and the aim is the same in terms of how do we keep our people healthy and strong. We know that we have to eat every day. That's one way in which you can, healthy, getting your brain and your mind right, making sure your body's okay, making sure that we feel okay, that we're in environments that are healthy. And so
Yeah.
watching her take the task of
Mm-hmm.
pulling together these power players
Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, how can we work with the doctor, the minister, the judge, the lawyer, the regular plain person, the teacher, a student, all the elders, our young people, our babies, the seasoned
Mm-hmm.
people in the middle. How do we all have just some very basic mutual respect so that we can have healthy communities? And I
Mm-hmm.
think at some point, because if I do this all day with other groups who don't care nothing about us, I definitely should be able to do that with people who look like me. And to me, that is freedom. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's what that represents to me. It don't mean we have to be lovey-dovey or you have to agree with me. It
Mm-hmm.
just means how do we get free and get healthy at the same time? Because to me, being healthy is freedom to me.
Mm-hmm. Freedom.
Not having our people have a bunch of diabetes and hypertension and
Mm-hmm.
all that, that to me is healthy. And if we're not willing to do that, we may want to check ourselves to see why are we really doing this? What is your outcome? Are you helping people to plant community gardens and home gardens? Are you making sure people get to the doctors and check out what's going on with them? Too many of us are dying from things that are preventable. You can't do that in debate. You
That's
can't
right.
help your people always bring in confusion because you have a disagreement. At some point in your life, you got to put that stuff to the side so we can be okay. Have a conversation with that person.
Mm-hmm.
That is freedom when you can sit down with your sister or brother and come to a mutual understanding. I do
Mm-hmm.
that quite often. I don't get along with everybody, but I know how to basically be like, that ain't my stuff. And God bless you and keep it pushing. The name of the game is freedom. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not we can't it's unhealthy to do as much debating that we do as a people. That is unhealthy.
Yeah.
That's
It's not.
not going to help us get to freedom
Not only
on this
unhealthy
team.
today, today is not only unhealthy, it can be fatal. It can be fatal to the future of our people because while we sit around and argue and detract from one another, the future of our people is in the balance today. You have to start somewhere. Thank you, Sister Marlena Watkins. You have to start somewhere, and the start has to begin. I wouldn't minimize growing tomatoes because we eat tomatoes.
Right on. Right
I
on.
wouldn't minimize growing bread and wheat for bread because we eat bread. I would not minimize fishing and setting up fisheries.
Uh-oh. You jumped off again, Jamil. You back on. Go ahead.
Okay, no, because we eat fish and because we actually are in the business of having a diet to feed our children while we fight. See, some of y'all want to be soldiers. You want to be revolutionary fighters and warriors, okay, until you get hungry. Okay, because you get hungry one time. Okay, all right, revolution stop. We gotta pull into Hardee's, Popeyes, get something to eat so we can go back.
Or did you say Arby's?
That ain't no revolution. The revolution comes when you begin step by step to control with the backing of the creator. When you step by step control the means of production and distribution and consumption of the products that your people actually need, that becomes freedom. That becomes justice. That becomes equality. And so we can do that within a broad umbrella of people with different ideas. You know what I mean, Ro? It doesn't.
I
I
get you.
like the way you said it earlier. You said we don't all have to agree on every
We
issue,
really don't.
but if we're brothers and sisters, then that brotherhood and sisterhood takes predominance over the disagreement, and it allows us to function together. You know, it's interesting about whites in the world of history. You look at them; they fought a 50 years war, War of the Roses, 100 years war. They fought World War I against each other, the Russians against the
Yes, they
British,
did.
the French against the Germans, and they fought against this group and that group, and they all fought against each other as Europeans, but there's one thing that they could agree upon. And the one thing that they could agree upon is that no matter how much they fought each other, you would never be able to get anything equal with them. That they would sit at the table and bury their disagreements, and then at the Berlin Conference of 1883, determine how they would carve up the control of Africa and oppress you and me. So no, they agree when the time comes for them to agree. Can you do the same? Can you begin to put your collective interests over your individual proclivities and preferences and problems? And if
Right
you
on.
then you can unite and become the people that you need to become. That's why Juneteenth is so important. That's why Lake Charles is every year on Juneteenth. Lake Charles is the center of the Black world. Why? Because these so-called symbolic exercises carry great substance because they set examples. So now this message is reverberating from Lake Charles over to New Orleans, up in Baton Rouge, in Detroit, in Chicago, in Sacramento, in New York, in Washington, D.C. It's all over this country. People are getting a word. Hey, wait a minute. We can test our own people for COVID-19? Hey, wait a minute. Can we see about our own elders having enough food to eat so that they're not food insecure in the time of a pandemic? Wait a minute. You mean to tell me we can begin with community gardens to grow food for our children that's free of chemicals and antibiotics and GMOs? We can do that ourselves? Yes, you can. And unless you do, you will be doomed to a failure of a future that doesn't exist.
Family, if you are joining Earth Mama Live special edition of Juneteenth, we are joined by our brother Minister Jamil Muhammad from Washington, D.C., a long-term, a long-time helper of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam and a supporter of SWLA. Family, this has been a great discussion as we wrap up because we want to come and talk to you about the fireworks that's happening tonight in Lake Charles. We want you to know that Juneteenth is really all about freedom, and you should be asking yourself, what are you doing in your own community every day, in your own life every day, that will help us get closer to freedom the way you need to be free, the way we all need to be freed. And here in Lake Charles at SWLA, they did community garden day. They did a virtual church sermon around COVID-19 testing. They did a healthy North Lake Charles launch. They have a healthy Black Men's Day, a healthy Black Women's Day, a panel discussion with Black folks who basically run healthcare and things of that sort throughout the country. And tonight they'll have a drive-through movie and fireworks. Y'all celebrating June 19th, which is so important to our ancestors, to our culture, to our family. Brother Jamil, what is your wrap-up message?
My wrap-up message is a challenge to every other public official in every other municipality, county, state, or even at the federal level in the United States. If you are the son or daughter of the descendants of those who were enslaved, if you are Black like us and you know that our people suffer, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, of the good things of life, we have only one half to three-fifths. But of the negative measures of death and dysfunction, we're always twice as much. If you realize that, then I'm going to ask you to follow the model of SWLA. Contact Sister Javon and find out how you too can serve underserved communities, whether they're small communities of Black people in the larger context, like Marin City, California, or whether they're larger communities. Wherever you are, you can do something. And I'm grateful for being able to say that our sister, and so when she asked me to come, always an honor to come to Southwest Louisiana, to be in Lake Charles, to be in these various different places, to be in DeRidder and Ioway, and look across the border and see Beaumont and Port Arthur and Orange. That's how you say it now. Orange, Texas. I'm very grateful to be here, and I challenge every other official, every other provider of care, every other leader in the spiritual community, every other leader in the struggle. Show love and respect for somebody Black today. Show love and respect for your brothers and sisters today. Show love and respect for the communities that are our neighbors and allies and friends. And even show respect for the enemies. But respect yourself first and build for yourself first. It's time now for us to go for self and do for self. And unless we do for self, we will suffer the consequences. So happy to be back in Lake Charles. Let's celebrate tonight, the Princess and the Frog, and then the fireworks. And we'll make sure that everybody has a great time tonight. Thank you so much, Sister Rolanda and Earth Mama Network, for letting me be a part of this program today. I look forward to being back there in Seattle. Not Seattle, Sacramento with you. I mixed up my basketball teams. It's not it's the Kings, and then I mixed it. Okay, but I'm glad to be with you today, and I hope to be back with you in Sacramento sometime soon and be able to build stronger and stronger ties, brother and sister. So good to see your beautiful smile this afternoon.
You'll be 11:38. 11:38. And it's 12, it's after 12 o'clock. All right, I'm gonna get my switch. I'm gonna be like, it ain't bad. She used to be out with a switch. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, you can wear it. Oh. Yeah, my grandmother left me. Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought I left at 11:40. No, baby, 11:38. Then you clocked out at 11:40.